Welcome, everybody, to another A Course in Miracles session. We're going to continue on chapter 4. This is A Course in Miracles, by the way, everybody. Anybody that is live online, first time tuning in, this is a kind of self-study, spiritual book in terms of being on the spiritual stage. A Course of Miracles is actually quite young, but it has changed probably hundreds of thousands of lives. The funny thing about A Course of Miracles is that it is probably the number one bestseller book that has not really been read or has been sitting on a bookshelf. So over 3 million plus copies sold. And some of the things that you hear online with people that are studying A Course in Miracles or kind of getting into it says, I've had A Course in Miracles for many years, or I've heard about it for many years, but I've never actually picked it up. Or, it's been sitting on my bookshelf table forever, or I've been trying to read it, just couldn't understand it, so I gave up. Any combination of those things. A Course in Miracles is really, it's a study that is really best done in the beginning in group sessions, because one, whoever is facilitating, so in this instance, me for now, we create a container where we get to share and learn the course together. And two is the accountability, right? It's important that something this dense, something like this type of practice, if you really want to incorporate it into your life, it's important to create a routine with it. So we do these calls twice a week for anybody that's just joining in new live. And then I'll quickly just go into what is A Course in Miracles, right? So A Course in Miracles, really, it's in the front of the book, it says it's foundation for inner peace. So can we find inner peace in our relationships? Can we find inner peace in our business, in our career, just in our life? And the course, trying to explain it is hard, but I guess there is a line in the course that really explains what it is and what it's trying to do. So the Course in Miracles main teaching is that separation, that there is really only two things ever happening. Either the ego is teaching you and speaking through you, or it's the Holy Spirit that is teaching you and speaking through you. And so the ego is always creating separation, conflict, and the Holy Spirit is creating unity and love and peace. So you really have two choices only anytime. I was watching this video this morning, and it was about this 120-year-old woman giving wisdom. And she's like, well, there is 5 L's, she said, and one of the first 2 L's is life and love, and the third L is laugh. And if you laugh without love, okay, so without the guidance of the Holy Spirit, it could be very cruel, right? It could be mean. People can be offended, and it's a very cruel thing. So without love, even laughter itself, it's the ego taking it, creating separation with laugh. Now, if you laugh with love, you experience tremendous joy, you experience connection, oneness, happiness, right? Like, it's the same thing happening. Laughing is happening, but there's only two sides. It's black and white, right? Either you're with love or without love, or it's loveless is what the Course calls it. And then labor, the things that you do, if you do it without love, it's actually, it's like, I don't know, it's like a task. We get very disgruntled, and there's anxiety and all the stuff that comes up with doing labor and work without love. And if you do it with love, that's like, musicians singing, painters painting, and people just doing the things that they love to do. And now labor becomes a ministry rather than like a job, right? So I can't remember what the third L was, but I mean the last L was, but you get the point. A Course of Miracles is basically teaching us that too. Whatever you do, there are two ways to do it. One, you do it with the ego, and the other one, you do it with the Holy Spirit. Now, doing it with the Holy Spirit is returning to oneness with God. And in that oneness, we feel the relief. All right. So for example, when a baby is in the womb of the mother, right, there is no identity. The identity of the baby is one with the mother. What the mother thinks, the baby thinks. What the mother eats, the baby eats. And it's just a oneness that is happening until birth happens and the baby takes his first breath, and the separation of identity happens. And that's what the Course says happened to us, is there once upon a time was us in one, and that's all there was. And then a tiny mad idea showed up, like, what if we could be separate and something other than God, than this bliss, this kingdom? And because we forgot to laugh at that idea, we took it seriously. That's how the ego was born. And from that point on, the ego has been trying to keep itself alive. And the way that it keeps itself alive is to forget about the oneness, is to keep you distracted enough that you don't ask the questions. You don't align yourself to spirit, because as you align yourself to spirit, the ego just disappears. And so everything that the ego does for us, and we're going to talk about it in today's section, is what is called an illusion. And the ego is trying to enroll us into illusions all the time. Illusions look like sickness in the body. Illusions look like, what you think is your identity. Illusions look like the stories and the traumas you tell yourself, the perceptions you have about people, about everything in your life, whatever you see with your eyes. Let's call it anything you see with your physical eyes, hear with your physical ears, and experience with your physical body is part of the illusion that the ego is trying to create of this separate world. Okay, there is another world that is beyond. So the Course says that this separation from God is nothing more than the belief that our will and God's will are not the same. And that's what the ego has been hiding from us the entire time, is that your will and God's will are not the same. That everything is not serving your best interest. And we're going to start in that section today. And so what the Course says is here is a guide for you. Here's the Holy Spirit. This is a guide for you. And this guide will help you undo the blockages to love, to the awareness of love. This guide that is given to us both see the blockages that we have and also see beyond the blockages to our potential and to our inheritance, which is just naturally love. And then this Holy Spirit teaches us, how do we give attention to these blocks so that we can raise them into our awareness and give it over to the Holy Spirit so that it can be undone. And so this undoing is called forgiveness. Okay, it's actually called the atonement, but the process itself for us is forgiveness. We forgive ourselves for forgetting who it is that we are and what it is that we already have. So the guide itself, the Holy Spirit, is only here to remind you and me of what we really want. Okay, Spirit itself is not trying to force a teaching upon you. It is merely just showing you what you really want and who you are, and bring that into your awareness. And who we really are is not a mystery, nor is it a secret, but it is hidden. And we are the ones who hid it. And we're the ones who refuse to accept it. Through denial, through projections, through stubbornness, and through all this stuff. And but really the responsibility of that choice is up to us. And so essentially all we're doing is we're trying to solve a problem that we made. But since we made it, we cherish it, so we can't really solve it. And there is if you guys have read not the Surrender Experiment, what's his other book? Michael Singer's The Untethered Soul, right? There is a witnesser that is witnessing your life. However, where we're not looking at, the Course is saying, is that we're not looking at the witnesser. See, the ego is clever because the ego hides the question in the observer. So as you're observing, you're looking at the observed, and you're trying to solve at the level of the observed, which is what the Course says, at the symptom level. The cause level is the witnesser itself. If it is hidden, oh wait, somebody's trying to come in. Hold on. If it is hidden at the level of the witnesser or the observer, then we can never actually find it if we don't look there, right? That's the genius part of the ego. So the Course says, okay, let's look at you who is observing this other identity that is Alex that's playing out. Right? What are the projections that is causing you to observe it a certain way? So the genius of the ego is that it hides the question inside the witnesser and the observer. So today we're going to go through chapter 4, section 4, and we're going to talk a little bit more about, I guess, the observed, the body, okay, and how this body is associated with the ego, and how everything that comes of the body is really an illusion. Now, the Course is hard to understand and hard to read. This is why it's, you work together with a group. You study together with the group so that you can understand it better. So conversations show up and we can use the teachings of A Course in Miracles to address everyday life things. All right, because as we get to the ego body illusions, like as we start to recognize these illusions, and these types of calls help us reflect back onto our life. So we're looking at the observer now. We're looking at the observer that's witnessing Alex's life play out. All right, so it's been a week since we did this call, and lots has happened. We threw an event live in Vegas, which things came up also. I got feedback that that there was a point where I didn't, how do I call it? Maybe the ego could have shown up. At least I was being observed and perceived this way, that the ego showed up, and because I've been doing bigger things, somebody else that wasn't in space or have accomplished as much financially, I didn't give proper attention to, and it was perceived as like, oh, this is very egoic of Alex, and I recognize that, like, okay, this is good feedback. How do I see it with love and with peace? Right? Because the ego will say, great, perfect. This is a time for you to go into conflict. This is a time to create separation. This is a time to defend yourself. And the first, and one of the teachings from the Course that always stays in my mind is truth requires no defense. Truth is, yes, observe it. Yes, take the feedback. And then you can do something else with it later. It's a beautiful thing. All things work together for good, including a supposedly negative feedback. So how do I, within myself, observe myself to see it as a positive feedback, and then see this brother that gave me this feedback as with love? Right? And so, lots of things have happened. My wife and I went through, for the last 2 weeks, and it's probably part of the reason why I haven't jumped on this call, is because I was going through so much stuff that I wasn't even able to process it on a call, on these calls. We were literally on the verge of splitting up. It was like, all right, let's see and date other people. And, and I had to go through this whole week. I got to sit in 4 different plant medicine ceremonies. And it was an amazing journey because, like the first one, like I literally cried in ceremony. Like there was tears, that came because of the heartbreak, and then as it progressed, it was like, okay, how do I open my heart more? Spirit, God, show me another way to perceive this. Because it was we have attachments. Like this is a special relationship, and I can recognize that. Like there's an attachment to how I want the relationship to be. So God, show me a different way. Show me how much what my capacity is to be able to hold this space for my wife. If she was to see other people and said, okay, I want to be back in this relationship, do I have the capacity to create such a safe space that she doesn't feel guilt and shame? Right. And so those were the things that I was working through. And then she joined me on Friday. I was like, hey, can we put off all this like seeing other people's stuff like till after we sit together? So we got a chance to sit uh in this place where we fell in love the first time 5 years ago. And so we sat in that space, and it was hard. There was moments where I was experiencing contraction in my heart, and I was like, oh my God, like, there was this like wanting to control. And this is what the course says the ego does. And the entire time, there is nothing else, nothing you can do to really calm your heart besides pray to God to remember like who I am at the core, and let that guide me. And as my heart opened up more and I sat with her and we connected by the water, you know, we remembered again, we fell in love again in the same place that we fell in love the first time. And if this is not divine orchestration, I don't know what is. Right? I recognize, look, there were so many things that I didn't show up, places where I didn't show up. And I put my business first. I put all these things first, and our future and our life into the future. There is no future. There's only now. The section in the course that we went through before called Finding the Present. There is only now. There's only a string of nows, and nothing else even exists. The past does not exist, and the future does not exist. The eternal is in the now. All right. So, we fell back in love, and now we're like, we're really, really, really connected and really in love. And how long can I hold on to this? Right? Can I respond with everything with love? Can I anchor this experience in to the point that I'll never forget it? Right? The course says there will be moments in your life that you experience things, and once you experience it, you can never unexperience it. And so this could be it for me, but it's up to me to choose. When she gives me attitude again, when she is upset, can I respond with, Babeski, what's going on? Right? With compassion and curiosity, rather than responding with the same energy. And that's my teaching. That's my lesson. My coach was telling me, it may seem like this is the worst thing that's happening to you. The past 2.5 weeks, it was like it was rough. Okay. And we were kind of like vacillating back and forth, like in that space. Every little thing triggered a big fight to want to be separate. And my coach was like, yeah, it might seem like the worst thing that's happening to you right now, but we all know that some of the worst things have ever happened to us, when we look back at it, it was the best thing that could have happened. Regardless if it was a loss of a family member or a loved one, or a separation, or, loss of investment, money, everything works together for good. So as we go into chapter 4 today, the body, ego illusion, know that you don't have to really understand or be at chapter 4 in order to understand what's going on. All right. Every single part, every sentence, every word, every paragraph, every section, every chapter of A Course in Miracles, it stands on itself, by itself, as whole. If you give your wholeness to it, you will understand everything that the Course is trying to teach you. But if you listen from the ego, if you're trying to interpret it, understand it, if you're like, I agree, I don't agree, you don't allow yourself to have that experience. So as we go into the chapter, just let go of anything that you think you understand. Allow yourself to just breathe and let expectations go. Let all of your stories go, all the things you think you possibly understand, and listen and try to hear from a place of nothingness. No, just of nothingness. There's nothing. I don't know nothing. And see if we can look from that place, right? Because if we try to listen from the ego, and you'll feel it, you can feel the ego like, oh, wait, this is compared to that, or you want to, no, I think I can share it better, or I think I know a little bit more than what's going on in the course, or I have my input. Anytime you just go into the I, the ego is listening, and it's going to be impossible to understand what the course is saying. This is why so many people pick up the course and cannot read it. And it's so dense because you're trying to read it from a place of comparison, right? Let me compare it to the other teachings that I follow. Let me compare it to this and that, and to the Bible, and to the Quran, and to any Buddhist teachings, Tao teachings. And it's until you can read it from the place of nothingness, you can't even understand all the other teachings, right? Because there is a belief, there's a stuckness in it. Okay, so from that place, let's listen from nothingness. And if we listen from love, it will shift us immensely, and we will understand what the course is trying to teach us. All right, so this whole chapter is about the illusions of the ego, so that you may recognize when it comes. So, okay, chapter 4, section 5, and maybe even as we go into it, before we go into it, I know I just shared a whole bunch of things. If you have something you want to share or that's on your mind, let's give a couple minutes now to get anything off your chest so that we can listen from a place of nothingness. Anybody want to share anything? All right. You got to unmute yourself.
Hello.
Hello.
I feel a call to share.
Yeah.
It's something that's laying on my chest, and I've been from all the different angles with my rational mind, and when dropping into heart, it's just too much. It's too volatile, and I can't let it go. I don't know how to proceed. So my question is, how do you respond to a trigger that you think you healed? And when it comes again, like a year later, when you really thought that you got this, that trigger, it's long gone, like has nothing to do with me anymore. But it comes and goes deeper than ever. And it's so volatile. And how do you respond when you are in that place of so much volatility inside of you that no amount of meditation, no amount of grounding can help deal with that trigger?
Yeah, so here is, it might not be the easiest thing to hear, but you've created the trigger. Okay, one, you've created it because you took on some ideas and this became that, and you connected a bunch of dots and made this a trigger for you. Okay, if you create, if you made the trigger. When you make a trigger, you value it. That's why you made it. Okay, there's a reason why you're like, even if it's like even if it's causing you pain, you are valuing that trigger for some reason, right? And the course says, give your problems over to me. Do not try to purify it first and then bring it to me. You made the problem, you value it. That means what you will do to try to fix this trigger is you will dance around it. Okay, and the dancing around it makes the trigger more real. And if you haven't given it over truly to God, to the Holy Spirit, what's going to happen is each time that trigger comes again, the stakes get higher. The feeling gets more intensified. And the Course says it's okay. First, you're changing your relationship to, hey, this is happening. Instead of it's like, oh, it's terrible, it's bad. It's bringing you to a place where you're going to say at some point, I'm done with this trigger. I'm done. Like, God, take it. I really could care less about it anymore. You realize that the value that you gave this whole thing is an illusion. And you're like, that is not what I want, right? I don't want to be right. Okay. I want to be at peace. I want to be happy. So God, take it raw, take it raw. Like, I'm not even going to try to fix it, purify it. Just give me a different way to look at it. Right. That's all you're looking for. It's like, there's nothing wrong with the trigger. There's nothing wrong with any of those events. It's just, I am perceiving it incorrectly. So God, please show me a different way to look at it. Here, I'm giving it to you. You purify it for me. Because it's not a healing. There's nothing that needs to be healed. There's a perspective that gets to be changed about the trigger. And once you can change your perspective, then it's healed. It's actually a remembering that there was nothing to heal in the first place. There was no trigger. Right? So it's just like, okay, instead of me trying to work it the whole time, the Course says, don't try to master fear. Don't try to master the trigger. Instead, master love. Master love, because as you master love, the triggers and the fears will just dissipate. But if you try to master the fear and work on the fear, what the Course says, there's a universal law of expansion. The more you give energy to something, the more it expands. So if you're trying to master this fear, this trigger, all that does is make the trigger bigger. Maybe in moments you'll have it dormant, but it's just waiting to explode again. Right? So just simply like, God, I don't know why I'm experiencing this. It doesn't feel good, but please just take it. Show me a different way to look at it. And the prayer, just every time that you pray, every time it just solidifies your faith in God and in the Holy Spirit more and more. Because that's our only job. Our only job is to find that connection again. This trigger is the will of God. And that means it's your will too. So you could be like, oh my God, thank God for this trigger. Thank you for coming up again so that I may recognize love where love was not for me. Right. So that's, the ego does not want to hear this, because the ego's like, what the hell are you talking about, Alex? Let's try and fix this person. If this person can stop doing this, then the trigger will be gone. No, that never, ever happens. Right. Exactly. That's the most insane thing that the ego can say is, if they stop doing this, or if the world can just be this, then I won't have my trigger anymore. No, that's just a form, and it's just going to show up as another trigger. Right. So let's give it over, pray on it, ask for forgiveness. Look, I forgot who I am. I forgot what I already have. These triggers are just random desires that the ego has created. Take it. I don't want it. And you got to keep doing it every time it comes up. Thank you, trigger, for showing up again. You're reminding me to pray. Here you go. And then it comes up again. Thank you. And then eventually that turns into gratitude. And the trigger, and you just realize, oh, wow, that trigger is gone. I used to have a trigger of people cutting me off while they drive, and then I was just like, it's more and more as I gave it over, it just started to become funny. Then it just didn't even exist in my sight anymore. I couldn't even see it. People would cut me off, and people that would be sitting in my car would like get agitated or get pissed or curse or whatever. I didn't even know it happened, so like, I don't know. Is it real? Is it not real? Right. So hopefully that supports you a little bit.
I needed to hear that. I needed just a switch. I needed something to help me switch perspective. So thank you. Yes, that was.
Yeah.
So thank you.
Thank you. And I miss you already. Oh my God. It's only been like a couple days, but yeah, I miss you already. Fraser, go ahead. And then we're going to go into the reading, unless you guys have more want to share.
I just wanted to quickly share, I too have been going through some stuff, as you know, and I really been practicing the giving it over and asking to show a different way of looking at it. And I've also been with the men's group working with archetype Michael, the archangel, and it's really helped me to just be more peaceful, to just not allow these things that are out of my control to be controlling me, to bring up these stress reactions. Oh my God, I got to do all this stuff right now. Now I'm just like, okay, it's okay. Things will happen the way they need to happen. Leave it in God's hands, and everything will be what it needs to be. And I wanted to share that because of Majore's, what
Maya.
should I say?
Yeah.
Myra. Okay, so Myra.
Roy.
And I just important to share, I do that every morning now when I wake up. I go into prayer before I do anything. And it's been a massive, massive help in changing my perspective.
Awesome. Yeah. These are just, and our calls here are reminders, because we all, every single one of us, will come up against something that we think it is up to us to solve, that we think it's separate. Our will, our interest is separate from our brothers and our sisters, or is separate from God's. And well, I think in today's section, it's in Sunday's section, we're actually going to talk about the indebtedness to our brothers, that if we can remember, it will change our life fully. And for those of you guys that are here this week, here's Jessica.
Hello.
All right. So we're going to start chapter 4, section 5 of chapter 4. So again, let's listen from a place of nothingness, right? No comparison to any other modalities, nothing that we've ever studied, nothing we have ever known helps in understanding this section or any of the course. It's just, let's listen from nothingness and see what comes through for us. Okay, before we start, any last thoughts, questions, comments? And of course, we'll open it back up after our read. It's a short read today. Alrighty then, here we go. So, chapter 4, the illusions of the ego, section 5, the ego body illusion. All things work together for good. There are no exceptions except in the ego's judgment. The ego exerts maximal vigilance about what it permits into your awareness, and this is not the way a balanced mind holds together. The ego is thrown further off balance because it keeps its primary motivation from your awareness and raises control rather than sanity to its predominance. The ego has every reason to do this. According to the thought system which gave rise to it and which it serves, sane judgment would inevitably judge against the ego and must be obliterated by the ego in the interest of self-preservation. So the first thought that gave rise to the ego was, what if I could be something separate than God? What if there was something else? What if the grass was greener on the other side? Right? I mean, this comes up for us now. What if another relationship was better than this one? What if another investment was better than this? And that keeping away from what is happening in the present moment, right? That chasing of something else, what the ego wants you to do. Yeah, just keep going. Chase around your tail. Chase your tail. So you don't ever ask the question of, do I even exist? Does the ego actually exist? Right? A major source of the ego's off-balance state is its lack of discrimination between the body and the thoughts of God. Thoughts of God are unacceptable to the ego because they clearly point to the non-existence of the ego itself. The ego, therefore, either distorts them or refuses to accept them. It cannot, however, ever make them cease to be. So, right in the beginning, when I shared, it was like, your life is not a mystery. Who you are is not a mystery. It's not hard to. It's not something that doesn't exist and you have to, create it. It's just hidden from you, and you have chosen to think and learn and do things with the ego, which is your choice to not find yourself. And so, but it can never cease to be. The light that you are can never cease to be. No matter where you are, if there are just ashes left inside of you, you're just so disheartened. There is an ember somewhere in there. It is just hidden. And once you find it, it's just about cultivating that ember and then lighting it up and then lighting others, right? Because one light just effortlessly lights the others as it is being cultivated. So it therefore tries to conceal not only unacceptable body impulses, but also the thoughts of God, because both are threatening to it. Being concerned primarily with its own preservation in the face of threat, the ego perceives them as the same. By perceiving them as the same, the ego attempts to save itself from being swept away, as it would surely be in the presence of knowledge. So knowledge, God, truth, these are all kind of interchangeable terms. Okay, knowledge is, and the one common denominator for all of those is that it is eternal. It never changes. Nothing can change it. Knowledge can never be changed. Truth can never be changed. Love can never be changed. Only when the ego confuses it, it will. So any thought system that confuses God and the body must be insane. Yet this confusion is essential to the ego, which judges only in terms of threat or non-threat to itself. Everything the ego does is for self-preservation, is for ego preservation. And when you see yourself operating from the ego, you can see that you are preserving your identity. You're preserving this Alex that is separate from everyone else. Alex's ideas. Alex is this. Alex is that. And that's why you go to defense all the time. If you're trying to preserve yourself and you see something as a threat, you will unleash your army on somebody else, right? And the ego is waiting for that to happen. So everything that ego judges is only in terms of threat or non-threat to itself. In one sense, the ego's fear of God is at least logical, since the idea of him, God, does dispel the ego. But fear of the body, which the ego identifies so closely, makes no sense at all. The body is the ego's home by its own election. It is an identification with which the ego feels safe. Since the body's vulnerability is its own best argument that you cannot be of God, this is the belief that the ego sponsors eagerly. Yet the ego hates the body because it cannot accept it as good enough to be its home. Here is where the mind becomes actually dazed. So we become confused here. Being told by the ego that it is really part of the body, the mind is part of the body, and that the body is the mind's protector, the mind is also told that the body cannot protect it. Therefore, the mind asks, where can I go for protection? To which the ego replies, turn to me. The mind, and not without cause, reminds the ego that it has itself insisted that it is identified with the body. So there is no point in turning to it for protection. The ego has no real answer to this because there is none, but it does have a typical solution. It obliterates the question from the mind's awareness. Once out of awareness, the question can and does produce uneasiness, but it cannot be answered because it cannot be asked. So the ego just wants you to be at a certain level of unease where you focus on the problems, right? And as you focus on the problems, you don't focus on asking the questions of, who am I really? What is it that I have? Is my will one with God's will? So this is the question that must be asked. Where can I go for protection? Seek and ye shall find does not mean that you should seek blindly and desperately for something you would not recognize. Meaningful seeking is consciously undertaken, consciously organized, and consciously directed. The goal must be formulated clearly and kept in mind. Learning and wanting to learn are inseparable. You learn best when you believe what you're trying to learn is of value to you. However, not everything you want to learn has lasting value. Indeed, many of the things you want to learn may be chosen because their value will not last. So this is like with the ego and not with the ego. The ego is always looking for something temporary because the loss of something is actually what the ego wants to have happen so that you can have that level of certain uneasiness again where you don't ask the important questions. You're like, oh, how do I solve this? How do I solve that? And you're just at that level where you're anxious and you're uncomfortable and you're uneasy about everything, but not to the point where you will throw the ego's thought system away. Just enough so that you keep with it. The ego thinks it is an advantage not to commit itself to anything that is eternal, because the eternal must come from God. Eternalness is the one function the ego has tried to develop but has systematically failed to achieve. The ego compromises with the issue of eternal just as it does with all issues touching on the real question in any way. By becoming involved with the tangential issues, it hopes to hide the real question and keep it out of its mind. The ego's characteristic busyness with non-essentials is precisely that purpose. Preoccupations with problems set up to be incapable of solution are favorite ego devices for impeding learning progress. In all these diversionary tactics, however, the one question that is never asked by those who pursue them is what for? This is the question that you must learn to ask in correction with everything. What is its purpose? Whatever it is, it will direct your efforts automatically. When you make a decision of purpose, then you have made a decision about your future effort, a decision that will remain in effect unless you change your mind. And then the next section that we'll go into next week on Sunday is the rewards of God. So it's going to make a big distinction, right? And one of the sentences in here is in the next section is the ego is nothing more than a part of your belief about yourself. Your other life has continued without interruption and has always been and totally unaffected by your attempts to dissociate it. In learning to escape the illusion to your brother is something that you never want to forget. So we'll talk more about that on Sunday. But so for today, it's really understanding more of what the ego is trying to do. What is the ego's intention? The ego's intention is always keeping you busy enough so that you don't ask the real questions. The real question is, what is it all for? What is this for? What is this trigger that's coming up? What is it for? Right? Because if we start to focus on that question, what is it for versus what this person needs to do? Why did what this person did to cause the trigger? Right? We start to focus on those questions, which doesn't actually, it's a loop. It doesn't bring it to, oh, here's a solution. What it's for is actually to show me, and every single thing that happens for you, the purpose of it is for you to remember the Holy Spirit. It's for you to get closer to the inner teacher, the inner guide that's going to lead you home. Every single thing out there that ever happens to us happens for good. Okay, it's like I shared. I use this analogy a lot to help us understand the courses. Look, we've set our GPS to go home, and we decided that this street looks better, so I'm going to turn here, even though the GPS says turn right, you turn left. And then once you turn left, instead of just letting the course correct on the GPS and go, you stop, you judge yourself, you judge others for why you're here, and then you start to focus on and the ego's like, okay, just stay here. Because if we go home, I'm going to cease to exist. So the entire purpose of the ego is to delay your homecoming. It just wants to delay as long as it can so it can stay alive. It can stay relevant. That means it will distract you from just looking at the GPS and saying, oh, the GPS just rerouted. I just got to go straight, make another right, and I'm back on course. But instead, we're like, nope, let's just pull over right here. Let's get into a little fight first about why we made this left turn instead of the right turn. Then let's go and judge everybody else for making the same turn so we can project our own inadequacies onto everyone else. And we do that. And we do a whole bunch of that stuff instead of just saying, oh, here, this will bring me more peace and happiness. Let's just get on the road. Let's follow the GPS. Stop wasting time. Right? So all we do and all the ego ever is doing is delaying you. Now, when you shift it to the Holy Spirit, the Holy Spirit's job is to remind you to look back at the GPS. Nothing you need to do. Let's get back on the road. Okay? It takes all of your triggers, all of your problems, all of your judgments, and points it to, okay, everything that's happening here is to show you. What is it for? It's to show you that none of that shit even matters so that you can get back on track. What is it for? Everything, when you ask that question, ultimately comes down to, okay, what it's for is for me to return back to peace and love. And peace and love is the path, is the GPS path. All right, so we're all going. Every single one of us is going. So there's no need to even get off track and judge others or anything like that. Our job is to remind everybody, hey, follow the light. Look, your light is pointing you back onto the path. It's just a reminder. We don't even need to force anybody. Just they're going to have their own things, which is going to bring them back. And actually, for you to remember to get back on the path, the Course says, is to bring another brother with you. Bring a sister with you. To show them, hey, this way. Right? Forget all that stuff. That path right there. And in the most loving way possible, obviously. Right? Like, hey, here's the light. Come hang. Right? And they're like, ooh, yeah, the light is nice. Okay, this journey is nice. Why did it take me so long to say yes, just to get back on the path of love and light? Let's just sing and dance our way back home. Right? That is available and possible to us, but every day we choose the hard path. We choose to take a wrong turn because we're tempted by the ego. We're tempted by money. We're tempted by status. We're tempted by special relationship to things. You know, and I'm purposely mentioning special relationships because we're going to move into a section in the near future of what special relationships are versus holy relationships. You know, the ego takes a relationship and controls it and says, this is mine. Without it, I'm less. The holy relationship is, with this relationship, it's reminding me that I actually need nothing. Reminding me that I'm whole already. All right, so I just went on a long tangent of, you know, GPS and Holy Spirit and all of that. Anybody want to share anything? What's coming up? Anything challenging in your life that you may want to, I don't know, use some of the teachings of A Course in Miracles to resolve? Ooh, I forgot to check on. There is chilling on. Cool. When I'm on my laptop, I literally can only see one screen. So if you want to, just, you know, find my ACIM link so that you can register and be a part of the Zoom, because the Zoom is awesome. All right, go ahead, guys. The floor is open.
I say that because
It's doing something. I can't hear you guys. All right, sorry, my internet was off a little bit. Go ahead, Brooke, and you can say that again. Sorry.
Um, so I was saying, can you hear me?
Yes.
Dude, what the heck is going on? Okay, awesome. And so I was saying, just send me good vibes to find a place to live here in Dallas, because we already had a place that was aligned that I sent a deposit, like almost $4,000. It was like $3,750. The place was to be ready. Actually, by April 22nd, they knew it was coming on Saturday. We got there on Monday. I have stuff being delivered, all of the stuff. House wasn't ready. They're still being there. Like, and then it's just a lot of hiccups. And I said, oh, we're going to clean. And you could see the roll stuff all over the place isn't ready. So across the country or a different state, I just wanted, something quick, and I trusted the real estate agent. And let me put it out there. I love Indian food, but that's so strong of curry in the whole house. My husband will not have that. Okay. And unfortunately, I don't think it's going to come out. And I mean, I'm going to pause, but essentially give me good vibes and stay with the weekend. The kids aren't here for another week, and now I'm having to start all over. So it is so fun. So yeah, good times. Send me good vibes.
Yeah, definitely. Sending you lots of good vibes, and and we never know. Like the course just said, all things work for good. We don't know what's meant to happen. We can just enjoy that journey, along the way. You can do it peacefully, or
I'm
you
doing
can
my
do it
best
screaming and
to
kicking.
enjoy
Yeah.
the journey, Alex.
Yes, I know you
Not
are. Just
easy.
continue to laugh your way through it, and we'll send you lots of love. And
I
if
love
you need
you.
any support, I know you already know a whole ton of people down
Correct.
in Dallas already, so you probably got all the support in the world. But anything that I can help with, let me know.
Thanks, babe.
Yeah.
Good vibes.
Good vibes. Good vibes. Maya, did you want to share something? Got to unmute first.
Yes, I want to share another thing. Thank you, everyone, for holding the space. I have a question regarding choosing love, because I'm struggling with a particular situation where my interpretation of choosing love, I'm so confused about what is the right thing. And I'm just going to describe very briefly. It has to do with relationship with my father. My father has been for 6-7 years really forcing his new relationship, his girlfriend, on me and my sister. And we wanted to embrace her with open hearts and open arms. And it was working for a while until it didn't. And a lot of hurtful things happened on both sides. And ever since, it's just been like a status quo from my end. And from his end is he cannot have a relationship with me, my sister, or any of the grandbabies, because he perceives this, that we are not accepting we're not accepting his partner, we're not accepting him. Now, the thing is, when I am thinking from the perspective of I am choosing love here, people we're like, just Maya, just roll with her, just do what they tell you, just do what your dad wants from you, and just live in ease and peacefulness and just obey all the steps. Now, to me, that's not choosing love. For me, choosing love is choosing what I truly believe in, what really resonates with me. And what resonates with me is just not having relationship with a person, because I feel like I have a right, I have a choice in this life. Who do I surround myself with? And I prefer to not just to love my dad from afar than having in-person relationship. And so this is where I'm so conflicted. It's like, what is choosing love in situation like that means? Okay.
Yeah, I have a feeling that there are people in this group that have dealt with similar situations that may have some wisdom to share. So if anybody wants to share that, because it's not, you're not isolated in this choosing love thing, right? That we're like, oh no, boundaries, this is choosing love. And maybe,
Yeah.
but the entire goal is for us to see like what is our capacity to love. The discovery is for us to discover what is our capacity to love. And anytime that we shun somebody out of our life, it could be love in the moment, because it's telling us, look, we can't, if I'm experiencing fear and I'm experiencing anxiety and I don't like this person, then yeah, being closer to this person actually doesn't help. Okay. But ultimately, we are all one. Okay. So if you believe, like, you can't believe that we are all one on one end and then shun somebody and cut somebody out on the other, right? Because that creates the confusion. Like, what the heck is love then? Is my version of love? See, now the only thing the ego says, okay, Maya, your version of love. See, now this is a different love than God's love. And so every single one of our problems comes down to the fact that we think that our will, our interest is separate from other people's and of God's. So now the ego, you're turning to the ego is, all right, Maya, I got you. Your love is this. And then now you can get behind your love. And then the ego's like, great. When's the next time we're going to war? Because somebody is going to cross your line of love. Because it's not universal love. It's just Maya love, right? Maya's love. And then Alex's love. Alex's love is different from Maya's love. And the ego's like, bravo, guys. Bravo. Keep it up. And the Holy Spirit's like, come to my arms. And my arm says, we're all the same. And we just respond with love that is beyond our individual love, right? So whatever that looks like to you, and give yourself time, be gentle with yourself. But I'm going to let other people on this call who probably have heard this conversation many times, so I'm just going to throw it out there and you guys share the wisdom to each other. Go ahead, Claudia.
So good morning, everybody. So I hear you, my dear boy. I'm hearing what you're saying. And my invitation to you is, like Alex said, this is Maya, the way of love, right? For Maya, her perception or perspective, right? So my invitation to you is
It was probably some video, but it says, love people and show them that you love them while they're alive. Right? And one of my great brothers, Michael DeSanti, wrote in his book, New Man Emerging, keep death close. Keeping death close is like, why do we wait till death happens before we let go of our conditions, before we forgive? Why do we have to wait till that? We could do it now, right? So what does that look like? If your dad was on his deathbed and this was the last, would you still have your conditions and your judgments and your ideas of what love is? You just put all of that stuff aside and you're like, I'm here just loving unconditionally. This is your last 5 minutes. That's what I think about a lot. Like when I feel like somebody attacked me or insulted me or, wronged me or backstabbed me, I'm like, this is the last 5 minutes they got left to live on earth. Like, would I even keep any of this stuff? Right? And that's what the Course is saying. You're the holy instant. Okay. The holy instant is available, waiting for you right here, right now. Deborah, did you raise your hand? Mama? Okay, go ahead. Unmute yourself.
Yeah, yeehaw llama.
Yeehaw llama.
Yes. I've as a daughter of a dad who is getting closer to his end. That's the short of it. And the journey of walking with him as his caregiver during his dementia journey, I have learned in all the ick of it, the beauty in releasing, forgiving myself, and for holding the judgments that I had, like, this is all the stuff dad was like, did to me, and blah, 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 blah. And it has really come to a beautiful place I had not anticipated or looked at. And I'm also a stepmom and a stepchild. And to look at that step space it's tricky, no, we can't force things on each other. You have to love me because I'm the new person. And to give it a chance to come, for me, was to come from a space of reaching out. And Alex, I remember like one of the recent gatherings here. During it, I reached out to my stepsons, and not much tangibly, if you will, has come of it. But I reached out and said, I love you, and I'm here, and I could be bonus mom, and to stop because I can go too far, I talk too much too often, and just hold them in love. And I come and go with judgment. I will admit, and that ego is a big player in this, and for myself. And I can only take it a minute at a time. And perhaps, I don't know your situation, but perhaps just give it an opportunity, reach out in peace. Because I know when, for me, I hadn't, for different reasons, not step stuff, if you will, but not had communication for years with my father. And now in the last 4 have grown. And I see a lot of peace come for him. And when I get charged, if you will, I go to this space of speaking to him, my spirit to his spirit. I mean, he can communicate. He's still got some cognition. It's not, or he can't speak yet, but it's all of them. So maybe the dad, girlfriend, or the stepson that don't communicate, or a weird sister or a weird brother or anything. It's not that. It's all of us. And I hope that makes sense. I'm going to stop. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for sharing that. Oops. Yeah, thank you. Thank you for sharing that. Yeah. Eric. Can't hear you, brother. Or maybe it's just me. Damn it. Can you guys hear Eric? No, I can't.
No.
All right, we'll come back to you. All right, Fraser, go ahead.
Listening to Mama D and Maya, the father thing hits home for me. I lost my father when I was 13, and I was really angry for a really long time. And it's only because of getting to know the people that I've gotten to know here and to put into practice that I've been able to let go and to just be like, love is the answer. And just like without conditions is the most important thing. And it's really a powerful gift. That's what I can say. I mean, it's not an easy thing unless you make it an easy thing. And we just have to lift those conditions, because if we are all of the same energy and we're all the same, part of the same thing, why shouldn't we love that person regardless of the way they were and who they are? It doesn't matter. Just love is the answer.
Yeah, thank you. The Course says the only appropriate response to anything in life is with love. So what does that mean, right? Then that's the question for us. What is love? If we can constantly ask that, what is love? What is love? What is love? Right? What would love do in this situation? So awesome. Eric, you ready yet? Okay. Well, there is a lesson that I would love to kind of just share with everybody from the Course in the back. So it's my favorite, actually, because it's just hilarious. Okay. I mean, at first it was like, what the hell are you talking about, Course? Then it's just now hilarious. So I do not perceive my own best interests. Okay, this is great. First of all, Claudia and I and Adam and I think the three of us were playing this game called Settlers of Catan. And literally, this lesson comes up because Claudia says, no, I don't want to roll a 7. I don't want to roll a 7. And then she rolls a 7. And it just is actually the best thing that could have happened for her. And so everything she was just like, and we just laughed because it was like, I don't perceive my own best interest. I thought 7 was bad. but 7 was actually a good roll for me. I just didn't know. Right? So it's the same thing as our life situation. So this lesson here, I do not perceive my own best interest. It is very hard for the ego to accept. However, when we really look at our life, there is no point in which we actually knew what was best for us. And even right now, we have no freaking clue. So it says, in no situation that arises, do you realize that the outcome that would make you happy? Therefore, you have no guide to appropriate action and no way of judging the result. What you do is determined by your perception of this situation, and that perception is wrong. It is inevitable then that you will not serve your own best interests. Yet they are your only goal in any situation which is correctly perceived. Otherwise, you will not recognize what they are. If you realize that you do not perceive your own best interests, you could be taught what they are. But in the presence of your conviction that you do know what they are, you cannot learn. The idea for today is to step towards opening your mind so that learning can begin. The exercise today requires much more honesty than you are accustomed to using. A few subjects, honestly and carefully considered in each of the 5 practice periods, should be undertaken today. Will be more helpful than any cursory examination of a large number. 2 minutes are suggested for each mind-searching period, and the practice involves the practice period should begin with repeating today's idea, followed by searching your mind with your eyes closed for unresolved situations you're currently concerned with. So, you think about some of the unresolved situations that is happening right now. The emphasis should be uncovering the outcome that you want. You will quickly realize that you have a number of goals in mind as part of the desired outcomes. And also these goals are on different levels and often conflict. In applying today's idea, name each situation that occurs to you, and then carefully, as many goals as possible that you would like to be met in this resolution. The form should look something like the follows. In the situation involving blank, I would like blank to happen and blank to happen. Okay, so on and so forth. You just search your mind of a situation that's unresolved, and you're like, a situation with this investment property, I would like to make a lot of money on this deal. I would like to make my investors a lot of money on this deal. I would like for us to be able to close this deal. I would like my partnerships to be amazing with everyone on this deal. I would like blank, blank, blank to happen. All right, so it's on so many different levels. There's a relationship part of it. There is a return on investment part of it. There is I want to get this thing closed, thinking that this is the best thing possible for you, right? Now, those outcomes isn't necessarily the same thing. They often conflict. All right, because if this deal actually closed, my relationship might not necessarily be great with this person afterwards. The returns we might lose money. All right, so this is just one example from me. But as you go through it throughout the day, what are the situations? My situation involving this person. I would like blank to happen, and I would like blank to happen. And as you go through a bunch of these mind searches, you'll realize that the outcome from all the different situations, you're like, man, they're not even congruent with each other. And I have no idea if one matches the other. If these exercises are done properly, you will quickly recognize that you're making a large number of demands of situations that have nothing to do with it. You will also recognize that many of your goals are contradictory, that you have no unified outcome in your mind, and that you must experience disappointment in connection with some of your goals, however the situation turns out. Now, after uncovering these lists of all of these things, for each unresolved situation crosses your mind, you finish by saying, I do not perceive my own best interest in this situation. And then you move on to the next one. Right? So this is the practice of surrendering and giving it over to God and recognizing that all that is happening in accordance with the divine and with God in the perfect timing. You are in the perfect place, perfect time, perfect situation for divine orchestration. And that will bring us peace when we can surrender to that. Otherwise, we're like, I want this to happen. I want this to happen. This is bringing me stress. And none of those outcomes and results really even are congruent with each other. They actually conflict. Right. So, okay. That is, the practice. It's lesson 24 in A Course in Miracles. So if you want to find it again, you can search it online. You can do, whatever to go to Google and just search lesson 24, Course in Miracles, and you can find that. Okay, go ahead, Eric. You got it fixed? Well, it's good that you can hear. I remember now. The fifth L in that original lesson from the beginning of the call, the fifth L with this with the 120-year-old lady was listening. Listen with love versus listening without love. Two huge difference. Right. So, I think Eric's going to try and log back on. But anybody else? We got about 7 more minutes here before we go off on our day to bless the world. But yeah, thank you all for joining today. I know it's so funny because A Course in Miracles call actually is different from my other calls, because my other calls, when I take a week off, like the real estate calls, it's like trying to herd people back is actually pretty challenging. Oh, and then, damn it, the internet. Hello, can you guys hear me? Okay. And with A Course in Miracles calls, when we miss a week, it's like everybody comes back. It's like easier to bring people here. Yeah, of course, Maya. So Eric, is your mic working yet?
Can you hear me?
Yeah, there you
Can you hear
go.
me?
Yeah.
All right. Wow. That was a little tricky. Something with the permission. Sorry about that. This has been an awesome meeting. This is my first meeting that I'm joining here. It's been great.
Welcome.
Thank you. I had a comment. I wanted to know, maybe you can comment on something I was thinking of. Can choosing love coexist with feelings of anger and judgment? And I have an example. Last night, I do my laundry. We have a shared laundry in my building, and we did laundry for a couple of hours, and it was almost done. It was like after midnight, and just had a load of socks left. Went down to go get them. They were in the dryer, and someone had taken the socks out of the dryer before they were dry and left them on the counter, and put their stuff in instead. So I went down there and I'm like, what the hell is this? What kind of person would do something like that? My socks are still wet. Why would you do that? And honestly, I had this moment of pause, because what I wanted to do was shut the dryer off, take all of their stuff out, put my stuff back in,
Yeah.
Or write a note, some nasty note like, why would you do this? It's totally not cool. But I didn't. I took that pause and in my mind thought, I want to choose love right now, which was to just let it be. But I certainly had some feelings of anger. So I come back upstairs and I'm like, I'm just going to vent my anger. I think that's the way I got to get rid of it. So I'm like, I was telling Casanova, what kind of an asshole would do this, blah, 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 for a good 2 or 3 minutes. I let it out. And it felt very good to vent that. But I still knew that I was choosing love, because I didn't realize, I didn't take their stuff out. I didn't turn the dryer off on them. I didn't even know. And I just let that be, and it was good for me to just kind of let that go, and went to sleep no problem. And this morning, like, I didn't even really think about it. It was going from my mind, So I didn't. We're human. We have human feelings. We have human reactions. Maybe I have some more work to do, so that maybe those feelings of anger and judgment don't even come into my mind, but they did. And I wonder, maybe does the Course in Miracles comment on that? Having these feelings of anger but still choosing love, is that is there more work to be done there, or is that good enough?
Well, so it isn't necessarily like you experiencing anger does not mean that that is not love, right? So the Course says love is beyond what can be taught. It is something that you can experience. So the Course's main goal is to bring up the blockages to the awareness of love. So in this situation, the blockage is this judgment of who the heck would do that? And the ego's like, "Ooh, yeah, let's go to battle." Right? Let's go to battle. Let's write this note. Let's take their stuff off out of the dryer and put it on top while it's wet so that I can put this in here. Right? Now they come back. They're like, "What kind of asshole does this?" Because their dryer was already, it stopped already, and I just took it out because it stopped. I'm putting mine in. And what kind of asshole takes my stuff out? And then now it goes back and forth, and this cycle of attack and defense just continues. See, the goal of the Course is, can we interrupt the cycle of attack? Right? So, like we shared in today's reading, this coming up for you, like the anger and stuff, it isn't that this is not love. It's what is this for? Right? What is it for? What is it showing me? And so the only appropriate response is to respond with love. And you interrupted yourself from a version of you that could have done something different, right? I mean, we can go as insane as we want. We can take their clothes and actually leave the building and throw it into the dumpster. We can go that far, right? We can go and we can literally go so far that violence can start out of this. And this is what the Course says. Look, every single war and anything that ever happened in this world comes from the loveless thoughts in our mind. Testing. Okay, I'm back.
Mhm.
Sorry, my internet's kind of cutting in and out over here. Now, the opposite, the Course says, on one world, our world, the opposite of love is fear. In another in our 5D world, what is all encompassing can have no opposites. That means within everything that happened in that situation, love encompassed the entire thing. So actually, there is nothing that wasn't love that happened. If you perceive it correctly, if you can watch it with love, if you can look at it with love. Right? So the practice is, all right, I've interrupted it once. Let's see where else will it show up, because it'll show up in different forms. The agitation and the judgment of other people will continue to show up. This love practice is for your own peace. It isn't for anyone else's. The ego will say, let's go and create some kind of conflict because they need to learn their lesson. For what? It comes down to, do you have peace with it? Because if they go and learn their lesson, you're not going to find more peace by doing that. What the ego will give you is temporary satisfaction, leading to faster conflict in the future, quicker to trigger, quicker to action from your judgments. But love shares something that is eternal. The trigger disappears forever because I responded with love. Because I woke up the next day, I'm not even like triggered by it. Yes, I'm going to tell my story, but now it's a story of overcoming judgment, overcoming the ego's quick reactions, wanting to react. Right? So that's the practice. And so as we continue to talk and teach and share about the Course, this is what we're always going to be talking about, is the interruption to the ego, to conflict. So welcome to the call. And it was such an honor and a blessing to be able to be with you this past week. And yeah, welcome to the tribe.
Thanks.
Cypher, last question before we conclude today, or last comment, thought.
Hey Alex, how are you, buddy? How's everybody?
Good.
So I was defining when you asked what is love, and love, I wrote that love is the courage to accept without having to change the situation, to be free from the outcome. So this came into my mind, and maybe we can talk a little bit, because when we have, like, okay, I want to be a real estate investor, and I want this outcome, and I worked so hard to get to that. And what is it's like such a thin line with being free from the outcome and being in this beautiful existence and being loving and just accepting it all. And then having the mindset of visualizing, knowing what you want, going towards something. So this is like just clicked into my mind a little bit that, okay, you let go, and when you let go, it comes to you, or I don't know. What are you guys thought about that?
Yeah, so I'm gonna give a quick answer to this, and I want, this could be something that we can all sit with today as we conclude this call here. There is a difference and a distinction between wanting something for fun, knowing that it's, we don't really need it, right? You can still want it and you can enjoy life with it. And there's another that is a desire coming from a place of I need it to complete myself, right? Because we don't need anything. Like, this is what the course is saying. Like, your desire for something actually is a reinforcement to the ego saying that you are not complete and you lack. But the child of God lacks nothing. We're not alone, and we have everything that we ever need, and everything is provided for. So there's that. Now, if I can want something, but if I'm going to want something to the point where I will compromise myself, and by compromising, I'm not just talking about values and things like that, but I will compromise peace. I'll throw peace away for it. Right? That's when you realize, okay, I'm starting to have a special relationship to this. That means without it, I'm going to experiencing some sort of contraction. I'm going to experience some sort of fear. So, like, the distinction also is the achieving an outcome and being attached to the achieving of the outcome. Right? We can put things on the vision board and manifest and say, yes, I want this beautiful, amazing $300,000 watch. But if we don't get it and we go and hurt our relationships over not getting it, oh man, I'm agitated, I'm pissed, and your wife walks in or your partner walks in, you're giving them the attitude because it's nothing to do with them. Don't you know I'm stressed because I didn't get this thing that I'm trying to get? Like, no, nobody needs to get your shit. You need to get your shit, and you need to have your own relationship to those things. And if you and the goal is to bring it back to peace. Not for anybody else. It's for you. You need to have peace with what you're wanting to achieve. Money, real estate, investments, whatever it is that you want, a relationship. Coming from a place of wholeness and understanding you don't need it actually attracts more abundance to you.
That is a great explanation, Alex.
At least that's what I think. And everything that I'm sharing is a perspective. Okay. There is right perspective and there's wrong perspective. Both are still perspectives. One brings you more peace. The other one brings you more conflicts. The one that brings you more peace, you want to go down that path, not because it's the right path, because both paths leads back home. It's the path that gives you peace while you're going back home. And peace is the prerequisite to the kingdom of heaven. When we arrive at the gates, whatever gate that looks like, A Course in Miracles, money, investments, real estate, forgiveness, Holy Spirit, everything is dropped and we don't need it anymore. We're using these things as tools to help us remember to get on the track of peace. Peace is the outcome I want. And then you can look at your life based on that. Is this bringing me peace? Is this going to bring me more peace? Yes? No? That's it. What is it for? Is it going to bring me more peace? Right. So, anyways, we are a little bit over our time. I appreciate everyone for being here. Thank you so much for being a part of this co-creation and healing for each other. You know, this is a beautiful weaving. And we'll be back on Sunday for the rewards of God. So hopefully you guys hop back on, tell your friends. You know, it's when the collective comes together, there's a power in that. There's a power in the collective coming together, being vulnerable and sharing and giving other people a chance to listen in to the vulnerability. I did not want to talk about my issue with my wife, you know, and that's probably why I skipped 2 calls. But, you know, we all heal together. So thank you all for being here. We will resume on Sunday. Much blessings to everyone, and we'll post some cool things in the chat. And have a fantastic day. Love you all. Much
Thanks,
blessings.
Alex.
See you later.
Thank you,
Thanks,
Alex.
Alex.
Love everyone.
Bye.